I'm very excited to showcase today how we can power a Salesforce and Postgres integration so that a company which has a business teams working on Salesforce could let their engineers access all of this data in read and write. And today we're going to demonstrate it in like less than 5 minutes. Boom. And that's pretty much it.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for jumping into this webinar talking about bi-directional sync with Stacksync. Here I'm joined with Ruben and Alexis. So Stacksync is a startup based out of San Francisco. They went through Y Combinator. Stacksync is really all about simplifying integrations between enterprise systems and database, and it's really going to help you in your role, whether it be a data engineer, an integration engineer, or a tech for an integration product, get more efficient in terms of your data pipeline and data engineering, and sync between your CRM, your ERP, and your payment systems. So just a bit about myself before I hand it over to the founders here. I am a security architect at Palo Alto Networks. So it's a cybersecurity company. And in my role, I deal with huge data pipelines. That's the primary thing I deal with on the day-to-day, is working with different customers and working with their data pipelines, often in the hundreds of terabytes a day. And these are pipelines that involve multiple different tools and systems. So I understand the importance of low latency sync. I understand the importance of ensuring veracity of data as it flows from one system to another. And that's one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to Ruben and Alexis about Stacksync. So just really quickly, Ruben, can you take us through the different products that Stacksync has and what we're actually going to be walking through today in terms of a demo?
Hey, thank you so much for hosting, Jeff. So my name is Ruben, co-founder and CEO at Stacksync. Stacksync mainly has two different products. The first product is bi-directional sync, which we also call Cloud Sync. It's a real-time and two-way or one-way, as you choose, data synchronization between your enterprise systems, which often has like very complex APIs, and your databases. So any combination is possible. For example, you can synchronize on the CRM, ERP side, NetSuite, Salesforce, HubSpot, CRM, like any other system you can think of, accounting system as well. And you also have on the other side databases, which you can combine with any of Oracle DB, Snowflake, Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, and so on and so forth. So you can make, let's say, Salesforce to Postgres, or HubSpot to Snowflake, or even Snowflake to Snowflake, if you have a multi-cloud like setup, or even like Salesforce to Salesforce, right? So it's like really like any combination works for bi-directional sync. And today, Jeff, thank you so much for hosting. I'm very excited to actually showcase today how we can actually power a Salesforce and Postgres integration so that like a company which has like a business teams working on Salesforce could actually let their engineers actually access all of this data in read and write. So engineers can just read data and write data to the business teams. So this means accessing what business teams do on a daily basis. So operational data, as well as sending insights and metrics to the business team directly from a simple database, no APIs, no scaling issues. And so now that we have this bi-directional sync put in place, so they can do dashboarding, internal tooling, or powering like internal systems with this database and accessing all this data, customers came to us and say, hey, Ruben, like now we have this real-time sync. It enables me to do a lot of use cases, but now I also want to power underlying systems and workflow automations with the events which actually are triggered and synced across the sync. For example, let's say when I have a new lead created in Salesforce, I don't only want it to sync to my database so I can visualize and power internal tooling, but I also want it to be assigned to a certain person according to certain business rules and a stock notification, a contract via DocuSign. And also like, I know this was a CRM use case, but for ERP, for NetSuite, for example, you might actually want to say, okay, when a client pays, when the bank account found, so the founder received the bank account, I actually want to start delivering the product, right? So it's literally like a real-time, high frequency for parcel delivery, right? Or any kind of energy use case or whatever you can think of. And this massive data is really something that customers and companies in general have really a trouble using. And this is why Stacksync can just let you extract events and data pipelines with 2SEC. So now you can say, I have a lead created in Salesforce. And in this case, today, we're going to demonstrate how to compute values on different objects depending on opportunities. For example, let's say every time we're going to go with a simple use case. It's going to be a 5-minute demo really fast. The use case will be pretty simple. Let's say, for example, every time there is an opportunity created in my Salesforce, I want to actually recompute the total amount of the all opportunities for that account. So let's say one account has 10 deals. I want to aggregate this value and put this value back into the accounts record. So another table, right? And this in Stacksync can literally be done with a workflow with one module and one query. While in real life, it would actually be, you're going to have to paginate over different queries. You're going to have to do like data consolidation rules and also just extracting the events out of Salesforce would just actually require you to go into Salesforce, put some Apex codes, CI/CD pipelines, consultants, and all this. And today we're going to demonstrate it in like less than 5 minutes, literally live.
Awesome. So it sounds like this is definitely paying maybe your clients and your customers face on the day to day. In our sync, we talked about how this specific use case, Salesforce to Postgres, would be a replacement really from Heroku Connect, which I understand a lot of customers are moving away from at this time. But it sounds
Exactly.
like Stacksync is also much more flexible, right? It works with any type of database, Snowflake, Oracle DB, MongoDB, SQL, Postgres. So really excited to look at the demo today, see how we get things done quickly and efficiently, and how we can even support that event-driven architecture we were talking about. So not just the bidirectional sync, but also actioning on read and on write.
100%. So I guess like we can just get started with the bidirectional sync first, so we can explore this, and then we can go to that event-driven architecture, which is also like a very big piece of enterprise architectures at the moment, right? I'm going to proceed with sharing my screen, right? With sharing my screen here, I let you confirm that you can see my screen here. Yeah,
It's on it.
perfect. So basically here I am in the Stacksync app. So to just go to stacksync.com and click login. So here I have both my Salesforce account, which I have, let's say, my accounts and my opportunities, as I mentioned, and I also have a database, right? So my database here actually has like different tables. Here I have a changelog table, but I can have any kind of table. This can be my production database, my analytical database, whatever database it is. Today I'm going to demonstrate with Postgres. So the first step to create a two-way sync is just to go on the UI and select which apps you want to connect. So here, for example, I'm going to want to connect my Salesforce. Very easily, I'm going to connect I can use pre-configured credentials, but I can just auto-write it super easily, right? So, no need to create apps on Salesforce, etc. You just go here, just click this, confirm with the MFA. I'm just going to confirm from my phone for security. And that should be it. And then so Stacksync at this moment will just scan all of your standard and custom objects. So everything you can see in Salesforce can actually be synced. This is really, there is no strings attached to it. So here I'm going to just put like demo, and then I'm going to connect my Postgres that I used.
So this would be to sync all the tables you have in Salesforce between your databases, right? There's no restrictions on which ones you can sync, or if you've created custom tables, like you said, those are good too.
Exactly. All of them, standard and custom tables, are all supported in Stacksync. And it's even more that, so basically now that we have this two apps connected, we can also go here and try to see, okay, which table we want to sync. So here I have all my tables discovered. So here I have all of them. I also have even like my custom objects with __C. So here I can just choose, I can sync all of them. Today, I'm just going to try to sync two tables just to make it easy and visualizable into this demo. So here I'm gonna have Stacksync to create a new table for me for accounts and for opportunities. In our use case where we want to aggregate opportunities amount and put it back into this. Here to notice is that Stacksync enables really to map it to an existing table. So actually you could map this Salesforce table to an existing table into your database. Or just or if you don't have a table pre-configured, which is in most cases, you can just let Stacksync go into your database, create a table for you with the perfect data types and perfect schemas and everything. So this you can really get started in 2 minutes. So here I have a database where I have only just one table. So Stacksync will just going to set up my entire DB just for me. Stacksync, here it's great to see that like here we have some icons. Stacksync can let you sync like one way, the other way, or two-way sync. This is really like up to you to choose this functionality. Here today, I'm going to show two-way sync because it's just the most powerful feature, but then like, you can just choose according to your use case.
Awesome.
The next step is pretty simple, is to choose for each table that we decided to sync, which fields, and there are many fields, right? We can choose which fields to get or not. For example, let's say created by, for example, is not a relevant field for me, so I just choose not to sync. Easy. I'm going to have a table called account, called opportunity, and I feel I can also rename it, right? So I could name opportunities if I want, because in my database, you have some specific conventions. I'm just going to maintain the opportunity. You can really change it as you want.
And this is the field mapping screen, right? Where if we have an existing database, for example, we can pull in those fields, the schema, and then compare it to the schema of the table that we're trying to pull in.
100%. So the experience of mapping the fields will be exactly the same. So here, Stacksync simulates you already have a table created, but Stacksync will just create it for you. But if you already have an existing tables, all of your fields are going to be pulled, and actually you're going to be able to map it, taking into account the data types, right? So you can map like the strings together, so integers, and floats, and all this.
Right. And to bridge that for what Ruben said, here it seems easy, right? We just do a few clicks. But imagine you have like thousands of records. We have one of our customers, it's 1.5K record in a single tables. Imagine you have your data engineers, like they would spend one entire afternoon just creating the table in Postgres, right? Taking all the data types, everything. But with settings 2 minutes, you can select, deselect. Just this, it's already saving a lot of time. Imagine a data engineer, 5 hours of this, how much it costs. It's like, this is the magic about Stacksync. Everything is super easy.
Awesome.
And I guess here's, Alex, you meant like 1,500 fields, not records, because records you can scale to of millions through just fields, right? So just to have the mapping done. And also like data types are very complex, right? So here there is just like direct mapping done, but maybe let's say NetSuite, you might have some specific array fields, which have specific constraints. And in Postgres, it just might look like an array or etc. So Stacksync will just make the best sensible choice for you. Just sync it. And this is really very hard. It really involves a lot of debugging in production setups. So now that we have mapped every field together, we can just click on create a base. So Stacksync will just create a sync for me and create the tables into my database. So now I have my sync. I'm just switch it on.
I like it. Confetti.
Yeah, let's go. Celebrating the wins. So yeah, I'm just going to say Salesforce opportunities and accounts sync. So that's pretty much it. So now if I go into my database, I just refresh my schema and I should see 2 tables appearing. So Stacksync already created it from the backend. I'm just refreshing my front end. So I have account and opportunities. And if I open the table, data is syncing. So I already have, this is real time. It's super fast. I have 18 records here. And on opportunities, I can see I have my 2 records. So if I go to my Salesforce, I should see, 18 records in my accounts and 2 here in my opportunities. So it's really just like classic, right? So now if I go into my database and I just want to create a new account, let's say I'm going to call it maybe, Stacksync. I'm going to create a new client, right? That's okay. This is just going to sync to my Salesforce in real time. So now I'm just going to refresh. And now I should see, just refreshing the whole page, 19 records, and I see Stacksync here. So wow, this is great. And so very important feature, right? So notice that here, you don't have the ID yet, because when you create a record from Postgres, the Salesforce ID is not yet known, right? Until you create it on Salesforce. So if you just refresh, actually, so Stacksync will just maintain the consistent state between the 2 apps at any point in time. So we'll feed back what the managed fields created by Salesforce, and we'll put them back just here into your database. So it's always consistent, right? So here I have a description, my description field, and I can put it here. It's really very easy.
Awesome. I love how low latency it is. It syncs almost immediately.
100%. So now I've created one record from here, but now I can also go into my Salesforce and I can say, okay, so Stacksync actually now it should be, let's say it's a partner, for example, right? So I'm just going to be saving it. So now basically Stacksync just captures the changes and make it flow in real time to my database. And now if I just refresh here, Stacksync is a partner. It's really like super seamless, and this works at any scale. So here you can modify like all the records at once for hundreds of millions of records, and Stacksync will just sync as fast as possible, staying within your allowed API rate limits. This is a very important thing. It just won't scale to the roof and then it will just break. There is a clever API rate limiting, which kicks off. And also, for example, here, if we sync less than 200 records with Salesforce, we're going to use a REST API. If we sync more than 200 records at once, it's going to use a bulk API. So you can change up to 10,000 records in one single transaction and just do like them much faster. Wow. So Stacksync can sync up to 1 million records per minute in Salesforce, which is actually like the record breaking in the entire industry. So this is basically a very simple demo of how Stacksync bi-directional sync work, right? And now basically we have this use case where we say, okay, now every time I create an opportunity with a given amount, I want to actually have this amount displayed in this description field, for example. Now, basically, I want to create a workflow for this. So because it needs to be real time, it needs to be triggered. Every time there is a modification which happens, just bam, we kickstart the workflow. So Stacksync has a product called Workflow Automation. So this can be accessed on the sidebar. Here you have the sync product, and here is workflow automation product. So if I go to the workflows, I'm just going to be able to just now create a workflow and say aggregate opportunity amount, right, to accounts in Salesforce. So I'm just going to create a new workflow. And this is a very easy process where basically I'm going to be able to, this is a direct alternative to Workato, SnapLogic, Celigo, right? All of these products, which are extremely complex, which are workflows, which are very hard to edit, very hard to test, because there is no logging, no monitoring. Well, Stacksync has everything included, which is really what makes it really enterprise grade. Also with fancy features such as replays, right? If you miss a workflow, if one workflow fails, you can actually fix a bug and replay it later on. So you don't need to simulate the traffic. So you can literally simulate traffic again, right? So here, when I create a workflow, I just have literally by default, like a webhook exposed to the web, right? So where I can actually send data. So here I can have a full data validation, such as, let's say here, I'm going to say Stacksync. For every time there is a change, which actually synchronizes between your Salesforce and your database, right? It will actually tell you, you can extract this event, right? So it's going to give you two elements. The first one is a record element, right? So it's just an entire record which has been modified with all of its values. It's an object, it's a JSON. And here is going to be recorded in our API. And here we're gonna create this. We're gonna also want to know exactly what changed in a record, because most of CDC engine, if you do CDC out of Salesforce directly, right, it's going to be very complex to put some script in it and consultants and deployments. But like here, it's very easy, and we won't even and Salesforce only tells you that the record changed, but doesn't tell you what changed that record, if it's an email which changed or if it's a name. So here you can just ask Stacksync to give you exactly what changed within that record. And it's also a record field. So now I actually built an API endpoint, which I can trigger from any terminal. And this will just send data, like it's extremely fast, will just send data to my workflow. So execution in the backend is like instant. And here you can see it took 200 milliseconds to actually get the record. And you can see here I sent two empty things. So now we're going to ask, hey, Stacksync, please trigger this workflow, but with the real data out of my sync, not only just dummy data out of terminal command. So I'm going to copy paste this command and I'm just going to add it here into my sync. So if I go back to my sync, which I just created before with accounts and opportunities, I'm just going to create a new trigger, which is going to say, send new opportunities to workflow, right? And every time a record is created or updated on my table opportunities, and the change can come from only Salesforce, because only business people are supposed to create opportunities, or it can come from both, because you can also create opportunities in a self-serve product. So it can just come from the product. And when the changes are successfully written to destination already, you can add actually this query, right? So here I'm just going to put, let's say, here I have the records and the record itself. And here I'm going to have, let's say, the changes, right? So here, Stacksync will just send every tracked change, which actually satisfies these requirements and potentially any kind of filtering that you want. For example, let's say probability equals this, or is larger than, or is a field that change, for example, right? So just filters, but just something here. And now I'm going to say, I want the field name as in I am Postgres, because I can have different actually field names, Postgres and Salesforce. And now the trigger is on. So every time that now I'm going to create an opportunity, is going to trigger my workflow, which is going to actually do some actions. And this action can be very simple. I have in my opportunity table, opportunities with amount. So for every account, so every account ID, I want to aggregate all the opportunities, all the amount of opportunities, and write them into that field. I'm just going to do, this is one SQL query because all data is available into Postgres. It's not multiple API calls to a complex API. So now I'm just going to go here and I'm going to say, well, here I'm going to create, let's say in Postgres, I'm going to execute a query, which is like aggregate opportunity amount to account, right? I'm going to select my connection of my database. And here I'm going to execute this query. So this query is extremely simple. It's just that we're going to take the sum of amounts for this given account ID, which has been modified, and insert this into my database. So it's extremely simple. And here you can see here, I can actually use into the body of the request, I can use record.account ID. So actually I can use what has been sent to me in my workflow to actually power my query.
Awesome. So obviously the query, this would be tested by a database engineer or pipeline engineer on the actual Postgres database. And then once they have a finalized query, they can simply paste it into this SQL query, and then we can add it as an action defined.
Exactly. So this query actually was even made by ChatGPT. So it's really even simpler than this, but like you can have anyone build this query and actually do it. And you can do any query in parallel. You can do, let's say, Slack notifications. You can do code execution, data cleaning in Python, for example, and you can have any Python code that you want here.
Gotcha.
So it can be really a very simple thing. So here I'm just going to delete this because it's to keep like simple.
But presumably a lot of your customers have very extensive predefined rules that they're already utilizing. And with this method, it seems easy to migrate those over to the Stacksync platform as they define these simpler workflows.
100%. So we have migrated a lot of Celigo and Workato customers recently. And once they migrated, it's not only they did the same thing as in these other tools to Stacksync, it's actually simplified by more than 80% all of the workflows, because here you can see we're literally creating a pipeline which is going to aggregate opportunity amounts and update another object in Salesforce with a single SQL query. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like this is a single SQL query. There is only this. So it's only one module, one workflow with one module. And we're using two different objects on Salesforce, which might involve a pagination because you might have like tons of opportunities for a given object, for a given company. And this, and also tons of rules and transformations, but everything is typed into a database. So now you don't have these problems anymore. And you have all the logging and monitoring. So you don't, here you can see like all the logging monitoring for every input and output. And this is really just what enables you to build so much faster. So just now that we have this workflow, I'm just going to create an opportunity for the new account Stacksync we created before. So I'm going to create a new opportunity, close date, whatever, opportunity name, Stacksync, opportunity one. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to belong to Stacksync. Okay. Stage, meeting schedule, amount is going to be a $4,000 opportunity, $4,000 opportunity. I just saved the opportunity. So now if I just go into my database in the opportunities table, I should see the opportunity appearing immediately, or I have new opportunity for 4,000. Now this actually was a triggered workflow. And if I go into my, actually here, the log appeared. And now if I go into my account table, I just refresh, and Stacksync has an opportunity of $4,000. And this is very good because now, and you say, okay, this is usually you have a workflow only when you create a record, right? Like now, let's say you update that opportunity, right? You update that opportunity. So you go here and you say, well, this opportunity now is just maybe 5,000. Actually, it's a better customer, we think, with all of, right? So it's $5,000. And now this will just repeat the exact same thing. So you have entire full monitoring of triggers here everywhere. And actually here, I can just show the speed of it, right? It's going to be 5,000 here. 5,000 here.
Awesome.
And this is very super consolidated, right? And now I can create additional opportunities anytime I want. So now I can literally just do this, create another one, Stacksync opportunity number 2, meeting schedule. And it's going to be like a 52,000, right? 52,000, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like here, you can see that this was 5,000, or got updated. And it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same thing everywhere. And now we also have a few seconds delay because there's workflows and all this, which trigger. Oops. 57,000. So all this done in just a snap.
Yeah. And we were talking Ruben, before this call just about how scalable Stacksync is. So obviously these changes, they're instant, right, with one record, but you guys have talked about a lot about how Stackflow is a hyper-scalable platform and able to process thousands and even millions of records a day. Can you talk to me about how that works and really where your infrastructure is for actually either pushing or pulling this sync data between Salesforce in particular and other databases.
Yeah, maybe Alexis, do you want to take over this question? Maybe this is a very
Yeah,
big
sure.
question
I
for
think
you.
that's yeah. Thanks for pointing this out. That's one of the main important things about Stacksync, as you suggested, because building pipeline like some API calls is not extremely hard. ChatGPT could do it, but making it extremely resilient, robust, and scalable. This is why you want to build with Stacksync. Why you want to buy this solution? Because let's say now you build something that works like 70% of the time, you cannot rely on it, right? So you cannot use it for your operational business use cases on a daily basis. And that's why the industry has been stuck with analytical use cases only for a decade, because it's so hard to make it like robust. And that's the game changing part with Stacksync. So for example, let's say we have a customer, it's like several terabytes of data that they have in a single database. It's enormous, right? And just to give you an idea, like 400 movies of 1 hour. And here we're just talking about tabular data, no images, no sound, tabular data. This is enormous. So to be able like to synchronize so much data so fast, like we had to tweak it. Like it's not just a single SQL query. Like you really need to go dive into the Postgres documentation and find the way to optimize it, make it scalable and resilient. So this is like the real value of Stacksync, I would say.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, I had to ask before about the product security and what you guys are doing to protect the data. And you guys are going through all the appropriate audits and processes there. So it's great to hear.
Industry standard, everything like private, everything in VPNs, etc. We also support like plenty of different way to access the database and other services privately. So that if you are not familiar with, for example, VPNs, you can use the AWS Traffic Gateway or maybe a private endpoint so that you can work with the tools that our customers are familiar with so that they don't have to get used to another tools, etc. With Stacksync, we really try to make it as easy for our customers to build these pipelines that they would have doing to build like years ago.
In my role, that the flexibility of deployment options and the flexibility of support for different architectures and data pipelines is super valuable to the customers that I work with. So it's great to hear that you guys are prioritizing the same.
100%. And today customers can also connect with any tunnels, IP word listing, tokens, like you have all type of security which are supported. And because Stacksync is naturally like a cloud, multi-cloud, right? We support like any connection, proprietary connection types to Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, and all this, right? So right now, basically, we even have clients which rely on database replication across different clouds, just because the one part of the app in Azure, one part of the app in AWS, and they want these two apps to interface, but the database cannot be connected, right? So what the user for is to replicate databases across two different clouds and in real time in bi-directional sync. So they can really have this natural app building and use all the native tools which do not connect to database of other cloud vendors.
Awesome.
And this is really powerful. And going more into the security, right? So we have a few clients which tell us, hey, Ruben, this is crazy, right? And for NetSuite, for example, there is a lot of transactions, financial transactions, which are processed. And this company is to keep a change log, which is easily accessible for every single thing which happened on their data. And to do this on NetSuite, it's extremely hard because you need to capture all changes. So sometimes the triggers fail. You have to deploy Suite script into the NetSuite instances, and it's never real time. And even if you manage to extract this data, it's extremely hard for you to actually access it now as a data analyst or something, right? Because it's like in some sort of logging system somewhere in the private on an Oracle DB somewhere, right? And now Stacksync really changes this because let's imagine we have the same use case but for sales. You need for compliance, you need to know everything which happens on your accounts records. We can create actually right now in less than 2 minutes, and this is like a challenge I give you, Jeff, is in less than 2 minutes, we're going to create a pipeline. We're going to log every change which happened into our accounts table into our database. So here, basically, I'm going to go into my database. So now I actually created a change log table, which are very simple fields, right? A record and the changes is like JSON fields. And then I've created 10, right? For timestamp. So every time something happens, I want a record to appear here with the details of that transaction. Now I'm going to go into my Stacksync. I'm going to go into my trigger editor and I'm going to create a new trigger. And I'm going to say, send account updates to change log, right? So every time a record is created, updated, deleted on table account, and that comes from any app because I want to just monitor everything. no filtering. I want to trigger that pipeline. So now I'm going to go into my workflow editor. I'm just going to create a new workflow. I'm going to create like a send logs to change log in Postgres. I'm going to create this pipeline. Of course, like this might have required like a lot of work, right? But today is going to be extremely easy. I'm going to have, okay, in my change trigger, I'm going to welcome two variables, which are the record as before, required type object, and do the exact same, but with changes. And here it's of that object required, right? I'm just going to do this, right? So here I have my query. I'm going to paste it and I'm going to create a trigger. Yeah. So here I would do exactly the same as before. So it's very generic. It's always the same thing. It's always the same thing. There is no onboarding or knowledge cost to have. There is no learning curve.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. So now I have a change as in the Postgres DB. So it's easy for me to understand. Cool. Right. So now I have a trigger. And now if I actually just go to my workflow editor, right? Now I'm going to say, okay, every time you receive this, you're going to take whatever is in body, right? So send log to Postgres table, right? I'm going to select my connection table, change log. Is it called like this? Yeah, change, right? So change log table. And now I'm going to say, okay, always one record. So here can be a list of many, but here I have only one record. And I'm going to do something like input.body, right? Because the body already received two fields, record and changes, which are going to be inserted as record and changes, right? So it's
Gotcha.
Now I'm just going to save, right? So now this is the fastest deploy version that you have ever seen, right? So now every time I'm going to go to my databases, I'm going to my database. I'm going to, let's say, add a new account. I'm going to say, let's say, Palo Alto networks. And I'm just going to create a record. Commit into the DB. Boom. So now I have a record which I've been creating. Now it's detected. It's going to be synced to my Salesforce. And in my Salesforce, I should have like my Palo Alto network thing. Palo Alto is. So now if I go to boom, Palo Alto networks.
Yeah.
And now, the record is going to feedback with the ID, right? Boom. So now you should have another record, which tells you it's also by credit time. I first have only the name from Postgres to Salesforce, and then all the managed fields. The name didn't change, but all the ID and credit time and all this kind of managed field by Salesforce got updated. And this can happen at any scale. So now, let's say, for example, let's say here, if I put like description, I just put 111 in all of these, right? I'm just going to be in my IDE seems to have troubles, right? 111. You're just going to add like all of this into my DB step by step. And actually, I can literally monitor the entire thing here with my logs, right? So now it's nice. Boom. And that's pretty much it.
Ruben, are there any limits to the amount of workflows you can trigger off specific changes? So it's easy to see that we've started with one workflow and now we're building and layering them on top of another. Are there any limits to how complex you can get in terms of either specific workflows that you're defining triggers based on certain actions, or the total volume of workflows you're running off of the databases that you're integrating?
No, actually, you have really no limit on how many workflows and the complexity of workflows. So WordPress scale to hundreds of millions records per workflow invocation per minute per workflow. If you have two workflows, you literally double, etc. So we even have managed Kafka queues under the rule, which probably going to be something for another podcast. But like here, you can see like real workflow, and the complexity of workflows can really extend to any task, to anything. So here, I'm going to, for example, do some Python code, for example, data cleaning here, right, in Python. Then I'm going to do the follow-up is going to be something, let's say, what could it be? Like a request to Google, right? So I'm going to say get website. So you can do some lead enrichment for any company. You can you can connect to any system which has an API, such as like any niche ERP of your particular industry, which Stacksync does not have a pre-built connector with. You can just use the API. You can really connect to billions of services here. And here we're going to suggest something like this, google.com, and it's going to be something like a GET request, and it's saved. And basically now every time we're going to trigger this workflow, it's just going to work out like this. So that's pretty much it. So now it's running, and you can see all the data. Actually, like the UI refreshes a bit slower than the backend itself. You can see here, okay, here we had no data, so it failed. Examples, right? So this is like really what you can see. And now basically you can fix a bug here. Let's say here you can see, hey, there is a bug because actually I didn't have, let's say, a change in a record. You can actually replace the workflow. You can do replay failed modules only. You don't need to repeat these modules because this might be maybe here you might burn some API credits, or you might create a record in Salesforce, which might create a duplicate if you run the entire workflow. And here you can just say the failed modules or the dependencies. So here actually it was just looking for the record changes and thing, but actually it was not, right? But like here, if I just do this workflow here, and actually I just replay it, this one, it should just work and be green, right? Because now we have changes of everything. So that's pretty much it actually in terms of like how you can see. You also have all monitoring here. So you can see the status of your apps, and you can also see if you have any syncing issues in any of these stats.
Awesome. I love one note I'll throw in. I love how Stacksync retains data in either destination, right? So it doesn't seem to do any like data storage, and there's no like logging that's required essentially to be hosted by the Stacksync platform, aside from obviously like the workflow troubleshooting and whatnot, right? Customers get to maintain their data wherever it is, and you simply interact again via push or pull in place. So they get to retain all that data, and Stacksync simply provides the services to keep everything up to date and keep everything latency free.
Exactly. Alex, you want to go on this?
Yeah, exactly. And we are starting to discuss about the issues dashboard, which is also something very powerful about Stacksync. So basically, let's imagine, as it happened to several of our customers last week, your cloud provider goes down for half an hour, for 40 minutes. You cannot read anything or write anything to your database. So let's say you have your ad that is being shown at the TV at that time. And so like you cannot like insert anything to your database. Like all the data is stuck. Like you use all your data, right? So what's happening there? Like for us, if you just have built in house, you most certainly build a pipeline that expects your cloud providers or your apps always be working, to always be accepting the data. But what if for some reason the cloud provider is down, or you burn all your credits for the day? You cannot send any more of the data, so the data would be stuck. But usually they don't build like a way to store this data temporarily, because it's like too hard, it's already too costly to build this integration. So the data is just being lost. And at the end, it has real business consequences. If you lose opportunities, you lose money, right? So with the Stacksync issues dashboard, basically, any record that fails to be synced to one app will be temporarily stored by Stacksync. Maybe Ruben, you want to show, like, for example, try to insert a record into Salesforce that we cannot insert, for example, that will be rejected. You want to make a quick demo of this?
Or yeah, actually, so how can I block my DB, change a credential or something? Maybe it's easier just to create a record and to make a change which is not authorized, right? Which is the same as not writing. So here in my database, I can just be here into my ID. And for example, here I'm going to change the ID. I'm going to say new ID, right? So this new ID will, of course, not be accepted by Salesforce because it's just impossible to just.
So managed by Salesforce, yeah. So now if we go to the issues, we'll see the record with a very shortly already here. So fast. So here, like we can see that we cannot create it in Salesforce. And here it was the ID, but let's say someone in the business change the validation properties for one of the records in the CRM, and they did not inform the tech team. Like with Stacksync, all the data is saved. No record is lost. So that your data team has the time to fix it, and then they can retry the sync. If not, we can write again to the CRM, or let's say like one of the team inserting the wrong value, can revert the change. Stacksync will revert to the former value. And this is extremely powerful, like to really build like enterprise, really robust pipelines. This is like a game changer for our customers.
And in the meantime, before we revert the change, while they're
already been reverted actually. So I just clicked and the change is already reverted. Awesome. So actually I can redo it. And like the way, actually, so just to notice as well, Stacksync will never store any customer data. So basically the reason why we know that there is an error is because And actually how we can reverse change is because actually when you tell us, okay, this particular cell is wrong in my Postgres, actually, Stacksync will go into Salesforce. So here you can identify the records, but go to this record and this particular field, cherry pick the value, which is still correct in Salesforce because it does not be plugged into Salesforce. You just wrong in Postgres, but in the CRM, it's still correct. We're going to cherry pick that value and sync it back to Postgres. So Stacksync did not store any data. And the reason why we can revert change is because you are synced two apps. So one of the apps is still correct. One was wrong.
That's the power of bi-directional sync, of course.
Exactly.
Nice.
So you were saying something, Jeff, before, just for pretty interrupted you. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I think you actually showed what I was going to ask. I was just going to say, how does Stacksync resolve the discrepancy prior to the issue being resolved? But essentially, it just preserves both states, it highlights the issue, and then it has both fields available for correction when prompted.
Exactly. And these issues can be of any type, right? So it can be just like you modify a field which cannot be modified, but maybe you insert a phone number in Postgres, which actually, and Salesforce has some custom validation rules. So it just doesn't match the validation rules, so Salesforce will just reject it. Normally, you just use an API call. Here, you still have the data in your Postgres, and you've been alerted into your issues dashboard about it. So you can either fix the issue manually, or you can just make a burst operation and all issues will delete. So if there are no issues, there is no differential between your two different apps. So the apps have the exact same state. If there is an issue, like then it means, you have something to take action on. And this is what Stacksync would not resolve automatically. Very powerful feature to actually manage, right? And here you can see, you can really monitor everything which happened in your sync. For example, since the beginning of this webinar, we can see we have created records, updated, and we also created some issues and solved them. And you can really see the trigger execution as well. You can really see everything which happens in your sync.
Awesome. Yeah, working in cybersecurity, I'm a sucker for some good dashboards. So I'm excited to see this here and also what you guys are going to continue to build for monitoring and issue.
100%. 100%.
Awesome. Was there anything else that Ruben, you or Alexis wanted to show before we wrap up here?
I think this is pretty much today for the presentation. So basically in a few minutes, we did showcase basically how to create a bi-directional sync, how to create an operational real-time update of accounts based on opportunities which are created in Salesforce. We also showcase how you can change log every change which happened on a selection of objects in your CRM or into your enterprise system database, whatever. And all of this was done really within that call, super easily with point and click interface. So no engineering, no nothing, no days or planning or something like this, just quick oral discussion, implementation, and that's done. And then you can deploy everything to production. And this is just extremely robust and scalable to anything.
Awesome. How do people get in contact with you guys if they're interested and want to learn more?
So people can just text me at Ruben@stacksync.com or Alexis@stacksync.com for any question, or just go online at Stacksync.com and click login. I'm just going to share my screen just to show how it's done. So actually go to Stacksync.com and they can click on login or sign up, and they will be able to actually create an account and start syncing instantly.
Wow. Awesome.
There is a 14-day free trial for new joiners. So they feel free to just start syncing, and use the product.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time today. It's great getting to hear about what you guys are building and the Stacksync as a company, what you guys are growing. Obviously, the bi-directional sync is the core feature, but it was awesome just getting to hear about how you support that event-driven architecture through the workflows product as well. And I can definitely see how companies might be able to save huge amounts of time, huge amounts of data engineering effort, and then even obviously logging and maintaining their compliance regulation and their change logs, all that type of stuff, which presumably is a bear at any large enterprise company or even a company that's getting off the ground, right? So it's cool to see how Stacksync can help them grow through that journey, help them maintain data standards and maturity of their different processes. And I wish you guys the best of luck. Excited to see what you build next.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Excellent, Jeff.
Thank you for hosting.